How are you? Oh, you're so sweet. I love your little mirror. That sunburst is cute. I'm in the middle of like redoing my apartment right now. And so interior design's kind of been on my mind because I'm bad at it. I don't know anything about it, but I've been noticing like, so I love that. Interesting. It so is. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Well, you're perfect. You can. I think that you'll have to like start recording and then call me back, I think is the way it has to go. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so I'll just kind of tell you sort of how this works for me. Basically, my guides are kind of, if I stare off into space or if I say they, promise I'm not crazy, they're kind of the ones who are dropping information. So even if we're talking and I cut you off, oftentimes I'm having to figure out what's being said over here and still kind of hear you. The other thing is, I hope if you have certain specific things you want to get into, please interrupt me because I talk a lot. Interrupt me and be like, hey, I don't care about this. Let's move to something I do care about. Because they're going to spin out and talk about whatever they kind of feel might be important, regardless of sometimes, and they're very focused on family. So you might not care about your second cousin removed and they do. You see what I mean? So help me stay kind of on the things that you want to discuss. Because some people want to say, oh, well, let me just leave it to the guides. I'm like, all right, we can do that. But the caveat being what it is. So what is on your mind? Yes. Okay. Your past year feels like it was, or I'm going to mirror the way it seems like you feel about last year. Not only was it a little bit challenging, especially on the front end, they're kind of showing me. So you were sort of like the front end of last year was a little bit crazy and you were sort of in like recovery / adjustment for the rest of the year, which shut down your ability to really, be particularly creative with yourself in any way, create happiness, create change. I don't mean creative like paint, but now you're sort of like a little bit rested, not as rested as you should be, because there's still some things I feel that are draining on you that you already know you're about to get rid of. So part of you, I feel like, needs permission to say, hey, all this stuff that's falling off, friends, relationships, there's not a disloyalty there. Like you kind of said with the awakening thing, unfortunately, you've had maybe a bit of a more submissive relationship with the world. And that's outdated for you. And it's been outdated for a couple of years, but now you're enunciating it. Because people don't realize too, those changes in our behavior, they lag in expression of them for most of us, like really healthy people that integrate change, you're still waiting out 6 months to a year before you start acting it through. And the reason I say that to you is because I feel that you're impatient with yourself. You're almost like, dang it, I should be through this. I should be done. The reality is you've been doing a lot of work. Just takes time to implement it, especially because you're a pretty stable person, I feel. So change isn't even something that you're going to perceive particularly fun. It's more like a strategy. Now, well, especially for your energy, because there's some people who love it and they will change your energy 1,000 times to kind of provide personal locomotion. For you, that would just that would be destabilizing. You'd never get anything done. It's just not your vibe. And so that's the other thing too, because if you have somebody who is a friend or someone you look up to who's more spontaneous, the reality is that would be more damaging for you to try to adopt that. And sometimes I think you wonder, like, am I locked down? Am I rigid? And it's like, it's how you feel safe. It's how you create the appropriate springboard for these changes. And you're right. So I do, when you say the fork real quick, do you mean in work? Because it feels that it's more than interpersonal, although it does have a personal aspect to it. I'm not quite sure why it's kind of in both worlds a little bit. But so they're kind of telling me you already have made a decision. So why are you saying that it's more of a fork? Well, they said it cannot stay the same. So the only answer is change. It's just plotting it on a timeline that feels appropriate for you, to sort of allow yourself to say that I have officially decided I am going to change a lot of things, destabilize, but it's sort of for, you're very determined once you're in the energy and once the challenge has begun, like ready, set, go, you actually, it gives you something to focus on that removes a lot of the anxiety. So as you look at it, you're like, do I really want to change everything that I do? Well, there's a reason you're questioning it to begin with. Is because what's happening is not working for you and you feel stuck regardless. So any change that you enact in this way will relieve your energy, because it will basically essentially be you promising yourself that grayness of last year, that sort of lackluster nature of last year, it won't continue because you'll be changing things. So don't be anxious. because a lot of these other things in the stuck energy, the fear that it's not going to change, the fear that I feel sort of around if the next chapter will formulate in front of you. And it's like all those anxieties go away once the challenge of the change engages, because you're very challenge forward. It's almost like once you're there, that's not a question. It's getting you there, because you'll stare it down too long and you'll just try to overwatch it and hope that it approaches you. So what is it you do? Okay.
Well, technically he took it on last year, which would be to me and my husband, so that I could actually like working.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's time to he's doing 2 days, he's meetings. Just because he did that time.
Perfect. Okay. That makes sense, because I couldn't figure out, it didn't feel like you were in a bad situation and it felt so personal. So that makes sense why because normally when people do big career changes, it's not personal. It's either like I'm fleeing something terrible or I have this great idea that I'm going to enact. Okay, but I guess the fork I feel or felt has more to do with, and the reason kind of is because was there a discussion about you not going back to work, or was that like, because I feel like, is this delay sort of disappointing you? Well, meaning, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I feel so, you have the luxury / the burden of this kind of giant free will thing. The reality is, for a while, so in about 2 years, I feel there's going to be quite a bit of more activity around active motherhood in a different way than right now. So there is a component where it's like, don't go get a career, because so if you do work, it needs to be something that's part-time, I feel, around you. And it needs to be something, I feel, around childcare or something to where you are able to say this, I'll be doing this 3 days a week, but it can be sort of malleable, because I just feel that there's another chapter of childhood, of motherhood for you that will turn your attention a little bit away from the restlessness that you feel that's projecting you into wanting to get this going. Because more than anything, your driver is not necessarily, I feel, it is the meaning component. It's like, there is a component that's boring about motherhood right now. There's not really much going on with it, per se. And that's going to remain true for about 1.5 to 2 years, because it's just an age thing. And so being protective of that busier time, while also being able to give yourself something to do, and also a way to essentially pad a resume if and when you want to launch further into it. But you really want to, I'm going to say an advice thing, because I never give it. I don't do advice. They're doing that. If you're going to kind of be forced to, because your kiddo's not going to school. I wish that you would take 2025 to not focus on a career or a job at all. And I know that that's a weird thing to say, but I feel that you have more activity in that world in the middle of 2026. I feel that if you do a lot of work towards it or looking, it's kind of going to turn you in circles a little bit. And then you still will not be going into a workforce. So it's not, the energy would be hemorrhaged a little bit. But here's what we are going to focus on. Not only do you have a focus around what do I want to do and the meaning around that, but that's sort of, we think of the inner circles around us. That's like fourth circle out from your from your energy. So we got to figure out what's occupying first, second, third rings. And a lot of that is more about an identity crisis than anything. And the work thing is a way that we are able to externalize it. We're able to say, okay, most of the world is like, you are what you do. You don't know what you are, so you don't know what you want to do. But the reality is, and I'm going to write this down because my guides have been making me. Okay, so I feel almost like that they're kind of giving me 3 major categories. Okay, so we're going to go wants, we're going to go social restructure, and then value. That's interesting. I don't know what they mean by that yet. Okay, and this is also, they're touching on the marriage too. Are you just a little bit bored? Are you a little bit bored? It was an infidelity thing? Okay. You know the answer to that. That maybe, I just got goosebumps all over my body. Remember what I told you that you already know a big decision? I don't think it's about going back to work. Because I was like, that's a weird, okay, that's probably why once. And that's probably why you're thinking about work and stuff, huh? All this is, okay, now I understand. It makes sense. And I'm so sorry. Okay, well, you were in shock. There's just a shock. When I told you like that it was gray and that the end of the year felt weird, it was because none of it, you just went into fight or flight. You just shut down. Okay. And then now you've essentially been struggling with this thought form of, is my entire future tethered to this darkness that has kind of consumed the last year and a half, 2 years? Yeah. Okay. And are you supported by your family? Yeah. But you are close with your family? Okay. Now, was there any legal evidence of this occurring? Like a report? I don't feel that a report was made. Okay. I'm just checking. Okay. Of course. Because you're not ready to walk. Of course. And how many kiddos do you have? 2? 3? Okay. Okay. I will say a couple of things real fast because there's something about this. Was at the time that occurred, was your husband medicated or what was going? Because they're showing me that there was a chemical thing going on. Was he on testosterone or was there something? No? Okay. Just checking. You don't respect him anymore. That's a big part of it. No, yeah. Okay, so in a curiosity of a timeline and sort of because you still need time to fully arrive at the decision that we're discussing and give yourself that time. Again, that's one of the reasons why this year, 2025, has so much to do with wants, social structure, and maybe value, because I didn't pick those, right? The wants have to be about like, do you want to be a mom of 3 without a husband? Do you want to be with your husband? Because both are hard. You're going to have to really discuss with yourself to pick which hard. Because the thing, and I'm going to write this down so I don't forget because I'll retouch on it later. The respect element, this is all pointless unless either you can find a way to come to respect him again or find something to admire about him, or because it's not about forgiveness. You've done the forgiveness you can. It's about the way that you see the world now. That's what shifted, and it's not about forgiveness. You just can't shift back. These things have real consequences in our understanding. And there's now a lack of trust. So you are the type to where you're like, if I can't trust you, I would rather do it alone because at least I don't have to worry about this. And so the version of hard where you do split up, you would not be as troubled by it as you think, because the hard you can figure out, the logistics you'll be able to figure out, but the emotional freedom is going to be what allows your chest to expand again. It's going to allow your shoulders to drop again. And it's been a while since that's occurred. And the thing too is, there's a version of this where you can do this intelligently and with a plan, because I feel almost in your energy that there is a part of you that's hoping that there will just be a definitive blow up, or there will be a definitive end that you can't come back from. But the reality is, even though that's what we would prefer because it takes it sort of out of our control, it means that the cleanup is not really in your control either. So that's the other thing where, and engage the people that want the highest good for you within the family. That may not be all of them, right? But begin the conversation earnestly where you say, I am considering this. If you haven't already said it, say it, because you are. We're talking about it. And I feel it in your energy that there's a part of you that's very excited at the thought. Very excited at the thought. And very excited at the thought of not having to think about this all the time. Because I feel like it's all that's consumed you. This relationship and where it's going to go and all these things. So the reason that is spiritually in your advantage is because we have the ability to share energy in a way that most people don't understand. We can actually share karma. It's a very negative thing to do, but it's just evidence I want you to know that these things are shareable. So when we share a reality with another person that cares about us, we say, I don't know what I'm going to do in 2025. I don't know what I'm doing in 2026, but it is on my mind constantly about how to get out and how to leave. And what that allows is you now have another person in the physical world who acknowledges that this is a burden, can think about it as well with and for you in their own time. And that benefits you because it strengthens your ability to locomote in this very challenging topic. So for instance, if I was your best friend, you tell me I'm devastated for you, but you go off in your life and I'm at the grocery store and all I can think as I'm getting my shit together is, dang, how's she going to do it? What's a good idea? What's the game plan? All that thought form goes into that reality for you. So you might be playing with the kids, but then once the kids are gone and he's gone and you start thinking about the topic feels safer and stronger because the topic itself is imbued with my energy and I care about you and I love you. So that is the reason, because most people would say, well, I don't want to burden people or I don't want them to know my business. And I get all that too, especially if you want to take it back. If you say, oh, never mind, I don't want to leave. But it's not, if they love you, then that isn't, you can't hide something of this gravity. You should be able to share it and share the burden a little bit on a metaphysical space. Not like that you got to talk about it all the time. You don't. I'm just saying, allow people to know so that you're able to reach for that a little bit faster. Because it almost feels like to me that, it's a topic you almost don't touch too much, but yet it is so big in your energy. So we could see how that would be confusing for you. I feel as well that, just to be frank, and I think you understand this as well, you would not have a very receptive response if there was ever the conversation of, right, like I'm leaving or I want to leave. And I think that maybe that would even be something you need to see to help make that decision. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? The part of you that he is saying is not there and that he is saying will never be back. And I really do not, I don't feel that there's ever such, I don't feel his hands on you again. I feel that there was a lot of stuff going on in his energy when that occurred, obviously. But I think that you would see that version of him resurface and sort of have its main stage moment if you were to say, hey, I don't know how to make this work anymore. I'm trying in my head, but I don't know. Because I think maybe you need evidence that it's not for you. And it's all bubbling anyway. I mean, is there not, tell me if I'm incorrect, because I'm open to being wrong. It feels like the energy between you guys is always on a low simmer.
Yeah, definitely.
He runs on a low simmer, they just said, actually. He's never just, okay. But he's not happy much. And you don't want that mirrored to your kids. It just showed me in reactive. And he's not always the most, he's not very emotionally available with some of the kids. So it's all more, huh? No, yeah, okay, dude. All right, let's talk logistics. So what does it mean for you to be able to leave? And what would upon the split, does he have an income that would be able to deal with the 3 kids and child support, things of that nature? That's so wild. Okay, I have a weird feeling, but why does it seem like, I'm just curious, but if you took if you took all the kids and you're like, I'm going to go take the kids to my family and I'm just going to chill for a minute, I don't feel like he would fight you for the kids or for you to, like, I don't feel that he would go and make it hard for you. Is that accurate? Okay. I feel that that's your avenue because the rest will shake out, but I don't feel that he chases you down. I feel that there's just one day you're there, then you're gone, and there's not really ever coming back together. And I feel that you would have to deal with the legal element, but you would need, because I felt, that's why I was kind of asking around, because you do feel that you are around blood at the time that the separation occurs, and for it to be out of state is interesting. And then the next question I asked him is, well, is he going to chase her down and say that she took the kids? But I don't feel that because he's so overwhelmed with it in general. There's a part of him that wants an escape as well because he's an escape artist. That's his vibe. Because you won't be able to make all those choices at one time. How will I work? Where will the kids be? Da-da-da-da. But I think that you'll have time to be almost sort of sheltered. But I will also say this. The younger the kids are for this to occur, the better, obviously, and you know that. And you just don't want to be there. And your energy's exhausted. So you can only pour, like, literally the demarcation about whether or not a child is well adjusted in the world has almost nothing to do with the father. It actually has everything to do with the mental health of the mother. So the theory is the father is really never supposed to pour into the kids until they're old enough to be taught lessons. The father is actually always supposed to pour into the mother because then she is able to provide. You're at a deficit. You feel like you're lying to them. You feel like you're constantly protecting them and trying to not prevent them from seeing something. You're like living, it's not living. It's this reactionary thing to this thing you don't approve of and you don't like that you happen to also have to call your husband. So we can call a spade a spade. And you've never not been able to do anything. They're telling me, they're showing me. They're like, you have a very almost masculine relationship with getting things done. And that's one of the other reasons why you kind of have a respect issue with him, is because he's a little bit too delicate for you. And you just don't endure that level of fragility. So, they just said, when you're in doubt, lean into how you feel about the kids seeing what they're seeing, because you aren't selfish enough to do much about this topic yet. For you, you're not done enough, but you are more and more nervous about them. I would also like to say, though, this isn't to deter you, because I would like this to be done faster than not. But I would also like to say I do not feel a significant traumatic impact on the kids quite yet. I feel that more than anything, they're eggshelly around him. They know to be. And I feel kids are very sensitive. There's a sensitivity to the lack of, not safety, the lack of that sigh of like, they're aware that's not in the house. But I don't feel that there's any knowledge or gnosis about why. And I don't feel that they are necessarily yet having much clarity about it, which is very, very positive, because I just don't see it. And I would tell you, kids are their protected class, you know what I mean? So their sensitivities are very, very on the sleeve of their energy, so to speak. Your middle child, is that a girl? It's a boy. He's very sensitive. His energy, I thought it was a girl because it's very watery energy. I feel it. He's the one we have to be careful with, because he is very in tune with you, and he is very in tune with him. And so he is going to be the one who starts to try to transmute the energy. And that's not his job, but he's going to try. And it's too much of a burden for a kid. So if he starts asking you adult questions, recognize the clock has started. He's clocking it. And you either got to figure out how you're going to tell him why the environment is the way it is. But you can't say, when we say to kids, nothing's wrong, everything's okay, and the energy doesn't support that, we basically train them to not trust themselves, because they have to say, my gut says it's this, but my mom, my caretaker, the one I trust, and surely she wouldn't lie to me, is saying that it's fine. That's not fair. So what I feel around him is that he does not seem motivated to take on much responsibility. Is also the reason he's struggling with his job. He has accountability issues. For some reason, I feel a lot of activity around this fall. So around this topic, especially around, I don't know, it feels like your husband's mental health is getting worse, not better. Is that accurate? Yeah. Because it's like, I don't even feel that this is he's not running a trajectory that makes me feel good about things. Yeah. And I feel too almost that there is a little bit of a resentment now towards the kids. So it's like he doesn't even like them.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Initial building was communication. He realized he did not converse anymore. And that was what made him want to take the dad to the floor. He realized he was not first, he was last. Does he have often trouble holding a job, or no? I feel, and that balances him a little bit. He's just not a happy dude, man. He's not built to be selfless. Like, there's a lot of issues here. You know what they are. So it's going to be more about, I don't feel that it would be wise for me to counsel you in trying to rebuild a warmth there, because the appropriate ingredients aren't even present. I'm being honest. So I'm not even going to go there. The main thing is figuring out for you a timeline that makes sense for you. Like, do you want your oldest in middle school? Where do you want your kids to be at when maybe this happens? And treat your own energy like what you actually are, which your energy reads independent. Because it's only through that promise to yourself that will sort of make the limbo state durable and doable. Because the reality is, unless you wait for the chaotic thing that's inescapable and then now you can pull the trigger to leave, it's like, thank you. There's no need, thank you. There's no need for it to be like a rushing off in the night. It doesn't have to be that way. And it can be done kind of like in the planning that you like to do, that you're good at, the organization and the strategy. You need to just give yourself permission to start applying that to your life. And whether that means starting to figure out what school, like, where do you want to live?
how is this all going to work out? And you need to have that in place before you say, hey, I want to separate, because that's when things get hairy. So everything kind of needs to be plotted out, because you're going to, I feel it's not a big potential. I always ask my guides to kind of show me stuff in percentages. So I don't feel that this is a majority of the energy. Feel that there's probably a 35% chance that you still get the whole run out in the night type thing. And I think that that is connected to you saying, I'm ready to have a separation. But it's not the same, because you already kind of have an expectation that that's how it goes. It's not like you're shocked by it and you're running off into the night having to figure out what La Quinta you're going to clock into. You know what I mean? Like, you know what the game plan is. And that's very, very important. The other thing is kind of understanding how honest you want to be with the kids, given their maturity levels and that they are different, and sort of understanding how we're going to navigate them. You know, these are things that require thought, and you can only think about them authentically once you've decided that this is a viable thing you're going to actually do. And so that's more than anything what I feel like this meeting has been about, is developing an honorable relationship with how you actually feel, and an honorable relationship with the truth of your situation, which is you don't want to go back. You do want to be free. You don't want your kids around this all the time. These are just realities that I feel strongly. It's just in you where you're like, but then that means all these things, and that's crazy, and I never expected to be divorced, da 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 da. But it's like, it's overwhelming. How could it not be? But it's about breaking up the decision making. And so, like, one example that I would say is, if you took a calendar year, there's 12 months, right? And you said, I'm going to label each month a topic that scares me. And that's the month I'm going to worry about that. And maybe each kid gets a month towards the end of the year. I suggest the first couple months need to be more about you. But even having a month where you say, I need to think and workshop, how is my youngest going to deal with it? What's the right way? What's the right, all these things, and write it down, because you are everything is just immediately, because the way your brain's like mine, and it's partly the ADD, automatically without effort, all the different options can kind of pop up. And then people are like, don't overthink. And for us, it's like, it's not overthinking. It just popped up. Now I see all the options. And to you, it seems like I've overthought. To me, I can't escape it. So for you to say, okay, what is this going to look like? And they're saying, don't start with the biggest topic like work. That scares you a lot. Save that for later. Discuss more, like say February, what? It's a month of feelings. It's a month of love. That's going to be a month where you say, I'm going to figure out the life that I would fall in love with 3 years into a divorce when all this is done. Where do I want to live? What kind of person, like this, and you just think about it. And when you start thinking, but what about a job? You say, that's not when I promised myself. This is what I'm going to think about. After that, maybe it's logistics of what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep from the belongings, and having just a list of that. Because what this does is, over time, it will allow you to appropriately address these topics logically and outside of the feeling state. And it allows you to log and move on, because that's what we need. It's like, you don't know what you think about the kids and how they'll react. If you spend a month thinking about it, the next time that topic comes up in your head, it can't cause anxiety. You've already discussed it. You're like, yeah, I covered that base. So for you to feel safe about this topic, you need to just cover the bases at a pace that feels appropriate and gain a little bit more stability in the topic. Because right now I feel this, and it like breaks my heart, but I almost feel like there's a version of you that the topic kind of gets close, and then it's such a shutdown. You're just like a kid that puts a blanket over their head, because you're like, I'm hurting and there's no one to help me make this decision, and the lights are off and I'm scared. So I'm just going to make it dark for myself, because at least I'll have control. And the reality is, it's like, you're really fucking smart. I feel that. And you're very gifted mother when it comes to your emotional understanding of them, because you're doing that in spite of some of your upbringing. And I just want you to know, you are being successful in the thing that you were afraid maybe you wouldn't be. And that's the connection. You're very, very gifted with that. So anything that would occur in the fallout of that, you are very well equipped to handle that fallout with the kids. You're naturally, you're just some moms kind of suck. I don't feel that around you. You're very in tune, and you have been. Part of this too, part of it can be 1 month I'm going to think about this, and 1 month I'm going to just think about spiritual development. Break it up. Like, give yourself an excited topic that's like, dang, if there's anything you can get done with 2025, it's getting nerdy about the shit you care about and just saying, I don't have to worry about this marriage anymore. I've made a decision. Don't know when it's going to happen, but I've made a decision. Now I get to worry about why I'm seeing 555 all the time. Why my dreams are weird. Like, and then you get to say, okay, I don't have a timeline, but I know these are the big ticket topics. I know which ones I want to share with family, which ones I don't, what their input on. And then I get to spend the year finding myself within this topic that matters to me a lot and is very fun for you. Because I could easily see you being the type to pull all your kids' charts and just like get them read and have fun, enjoy understanding this aspect of the world that calls you so much. Because it's almost, and I purposefully don't want to talk about your marriage or your kids anymore for the rest of it because I want to talk about your spiritual stuff because it's kind of cool. But okay. It's you're not giving yourself permission to take on these fun things because you're like, how could I do something fun when my marriage is falling apart and I don't know what to do? It's like, give yourself the grace to reframe it and say, the marriage is dead in the water. I'll address it when I get more energy and I'm a little bit more rested. But I know what the end game will probably be. So now I'm just going to lay down, get a good book, eat what I want. And when this guy spikes off, you already know, just keep doing you, I guess, because you just protect the kids because you know you aren't going to be tethered with him forever. Thank God. Now, so what made the spiritual, has that always been an interest to you? Or what kind of makes you say you're in the middle of sort of a development?
I feel like I've always had a little bit of that intuitive news. That's what I want to do.
No, it's actually, motherhood has enhanced it. It didn't, your sensitivity to it has gotten a little bit numb, but the presence of it amplified and will be amplified until the kids are gone. It's a gift of motherhood. To protect anybody who is a little bit gifted becomes more so during a motherhood stage just because we have to be. We're allowed to be, I guess. Did you have a NDE when you were younger? Was there a complication at your birth? They're showing me, I'm just curious because you just feel naturally closer to the veil. So that's part of it. That's part of the dream state stuff. And that's maybe because when I said to you, why am I seeing 555? And then the next thing I said was, why are the dreams crazy? I don't know why I said that. And people who are naturally in tune with the dream world, but not the other stuff, right? They're like, oh, why is it? I've never trained this. And suddenly has a tendency to mean that you're just naturally closer to that veil as opposed to, someone who's more trauma-based with it. Because I would say a lot of my development was more trauma-based. So there's a different way connection can form. You have a natural propensity, and usually that comes from something of a complicated relationship with life because we scoot closer, you know what I'm saying? Okay, that's fun. That's funny. Well, one's also alpha energy, right? One's also very strong, independent energy. One is also the energy of avoidance and addiction. People born on the 1st and the 10th, it's a struggle. I'm born on the 10th. It's a struggle bus, man, but a lot of dominant energy. 4 is very, very foundational. It's law and order, but it's also family. Right, if you go into the astrological houses, right, 4 is the foundation of home. But I will say this about spirit and about these things. So when we're born, and again, I say this like it's fact, but to me it is. I recognize that it sounds like we'll prove it, but in the work that I do, I feel that it could, but it's more about this is a belief system that I've come to not arbitrarily. Every time that we're born here, we are given 2 guides that stay with us from birth until death. The rest have they have the freedom and the tendency to come and go. One of them faces outward. It's not one that you're going to engage with much. It's considered the protector, and it's always facing outward. And it's to protect your human vessel, right? So it's not super invested in protecting you from mean people, but it's the one who's always, you left the oven on, do not take a different way from work, just don't go to that party. All these things that concern the vessel and keeping you physically safe and avoiding you accidentally dying. That's its job. The one that in the work I do, I keep it, we call it a gatekeeper. But for most people, it would be more like a secretary. And gatekeeper, secretary, call it what you want, but it is the one that you would work with if you said, hey, I want to know why I'm seeing ones and fours. Why are you doing this with me? So the gatekeeper is essentially, it's considered your main guide. And it will, if you say you decide, hey, I'd like to meet you, and you meditate to do so, these guides will always show up male or female, and they'll always show up sibling age or parental, but never younger. And they will be dressed in a way that is consistent. So for instance, if you are meditating, say every time you wash the dishes, because it's easier to see and it's easier to feel when your physical body is busy with something active. So that's why driving, you can get a lot of messages, laundry, anything kind of tedious. And you just say, hey, for this month, I'm going to try to meet my guide. And you're just doing it every time you wash dishes, right? And you say, this is the only time I'm open because I don't need random bullshit, just here and now. And say you always feel, and I'm not saying this is your guide, but I'm saying, imagine you just always feel an older energy. And then you finally come to realize it's a female energy. And then you ask, well, what did you do? Because I always think occupation, because they're typically dressed in a way that exemplifies the version of them that they are choosing to work with you through. And it will be consistent. And that's why I say, because say you're washing the dishes and you're like, I think it's guy, but I might be crazy. Then the next time you're like, I still feel it might be a guy. And over time, there will be a consistency, because these guides, once you ask their permission, it's like making a new friend. They're not going to interject. It's like you have to get to know each other. And once you give permission saying, I'd like to, then they can start working as well to meet you in the middle. The other rules around this, and this is very important because this is my favorite part, but also, I mean, it just is a rule of fucking the world we live in. The guides can, and we do have multiple ones, so I say plural, but the guides 1,000,000% must have your permission to work on your behalf. Because if they were able to influence us and adjust our behavior without our permission, it's just a possession, right? So and I've gotten better at it now. When I was training, I had to do this all the time, but when you wake up in the morning, because that's right, the day, you want all the help we can get. Why start getting help at 5 p.m., right? One of the things that we can always say is, hey, I'm open to your input. Help me out. Because it will never, you don't have to be ask, answer, gifted, right? Like I trained for this 4 hours on a Monday, every Monday for 2 years. But it's not like that's a requirement. So like when I earlier was just talking and without intending to, I address certain things. For anybody who starts asking guides, it's like that. And for instance, one way you can use is, hey, I have to have this really important conversation. Please help me so that I don't fumble this combo. And then suddenly you'll be using words you don't use. And that's kind of how you know. If you ever want these validations of like, am I just crazy or did I think that? The way it exhibits, it's very funny because sometimes you'll just say stuff that doesn't make sense to you, but it lands and you'll know, dang, that had to have been them because I know it wasn't me. Asking things like, hey, for instance, like if you sit down, you're about to journal about a heavy topic, that'd be a great time to be like, hey guys, help me keep this together. I'm not trying to stop for 5 hours. And that will manifest how they see fit. Maybe they kind of keep you from getting too sensitive. Maybe they kind of help guide you to stay way locked in the left side of the brain. You know what I mean? Like you don't know what you need, but you're allowed to ask them and they're going to deliver in a way that they're made to. You just have to ask. The conversation about getting to know them better is a little bit more complicated for you, though I really don't think it would be. The only thing I ask is do not invite them into the dreamscape, because while I do think that would probably be an easier way for you, it's almost a little bit like an unlocked zone. So I don't want you to be exposed like that. So if you say, hey, let's meet, let's talk, show me yourself, I would do that as a waking meditation. And then I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they start showing up in the dreamscape once they've established with you. But I will say, I'm being guided to say, just kind of leave the dreamscape alone for a minute, because you do have a natural propensity to it. Real quick, they're making me, I don't know why they're showing it to me like this, but it's almost like your best way of doing that meditation, because I have some that I already talk about, teach, and they were like, those don't work. So that's interesting. They're saying with you, have you ever seen those game shows where it's like Deal or No Deal, or it's like if someone's behind a wall, you will have a natural gift if you act like your guide is behind a wall and somebody like a game show host is like, is it a guy or a girl? I don't know why. I've never said that's not a meditation I teach. So I don't know why. But it's almost like your knee jerk with something like that is very fast. Yeah. Because if you just close your eyes and try to see it, you're going to overthink it. So they're not suggesting that. The other thing too is it is unethical for anyone to say this is your guide and this is who they are. So distrust if that ever occurs, because guides don't show up like that at all. In fact, for your guide to show themselves to me would actually cause me the highest level of concern, because it would mean that they were so worried about you and they needed to talk to me so badly that they would bypass the things that prevent that from really happening often. So if you sit down with somebody and they're like, your guide is Cleopatra and she says that you are a queen and should be single, you're like, bitch, what are we talking about? I don't think that, just don't that's my biggest pet peeve, because guide work, you find out with them and they're not stingy. Like, they're not trying to hide from you.
Like, are you able to, like,
I can. And I will say, so there's an older male and he's with somebody. He's with a younger energy. He's with a younger son, or not a younger son. He's not saying it's his son, but it'd be like a son age. Do you know who these are? Okay. Is your father or your grandfather, is your father still with us?
Yes.
But grandfather on the paternal side? I don't feel it's the cousin. Around your brother so the death, it feels, why is there so much guilt around it? Okay, and he feels bad because he's basically like, I'm the reason you married him. Okay. Dang it. Yeah, no, I mean, that's not, you were supposed to have those 3 kids, by the way. You know what I mean? Like your relationship with him was contracted for the kids. You're not contracted to stay with him. You do have another person that you're supposed to meet. That is a long-term thing. So just be aware of that. And that's one of the other reasons of like chop chop. But I didn't want to go there, but I just, I also feel around, he's kind of sharing with me saying, even some of the processing with the parents around his passing, I don't know if there was kind of an ignoring of it or if everyone just shut down, but he's kind of indicating, he's like, I wouldn't have wanted to talk about it either. He's kind of giving that permission, because there was sort of almost like, I feel like he's kind of showing me in your perspective, you felt that it wasn't addressed appropriately. But the reality, he was kind of, I don't think he's not the type to have wanted anyone to see. He's saying, I wouldn't have wanted anyone to see that. What is that? Is there?
Impulsive.
Yeah.
It wasn't suicide, but it was like, it was very dumb mystery.
Right. Well, and he, and the nature of it maybe made them hide it more, or be less willing to address it. And he just doesn't want you feeling frustrated about that, because he's kind of like, dude, I would have done it that way too. I will say too, there's something, and I don't know why he's kind of talking about this, but he's sort of indicating, he said, everything just felt harder to him here. And he was saying everything felt like he would look at other people and it seemed like everything was so easy for them. And he would look at the exact same situation in his world and not be able to see what they saw. And he's talking about good things in life. He's talking about the things that were good for him in his life. But he said that there was something around his energy that was he's kind of saying he was always afraid it wasn't real, or that it wasn't for him. It was kind of like the ultimate imposter syndrome. And he said it tore apart his ability to make connections. And so he said, I don't know what people wanted from me. He said, this was always hard. And he's like, he's kind of, it's kind of in his energy still, where he's kind of like, what do you want from me? Like, I can't do this. How am I supposed to do this? And I feel that just was big for him. He's like, listen, there's no pride around it, but it's almost, let's just say, I don't feel a lot of regret from him. There's a relief around it. And I feel that he will probably be a little bit less, I feel like he rushed the process of building his life out, because he's acknowledging that he did the process a little bit wonky. And so, because there is a process when we pass and we start developing the next life. He was a little bit, I want it my way, I want it fast. Yes, okay, that makes, because he's acknowledging that. And he said when he got here, he realized I should have waited longer. So just please recognize in his world, he's almost like, I need another chance to start. That's, it's funny because the male behind him, he's not really engaging with. He's pretty religious. No, your the father, he's watching us, but he's like, I don't know about this. There's like some judgment.
Okay.
He's just very rigid, and he's almost like protective of his grandson speaking with me. So I feel very patriarchal energy almost, and a little disproving. He's like, I think the dead should be dead. I'm like, I don't know. He's talking to me. Shit. Well, yeah. Well, and he was always, he's the type to dip his toe in anything and then later regret it. Like that's
Yeah.
no, but there's an aspect to him that's very old because he just let me see part of that. That's interesting. Because he started kind of leaning into the topic of your marriage, and I felt like he aged crazy. So that was a unique feeling. He just wishes that you could see how disheveled you are. He wishes that you could see that, like, for you to stay is not. He's kind of an asshole. He's like, you're not doing this as well as you think you are. You need to get out. He's like trying to get you to. He's like, hey, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Like, I don't know how to, but he's like, hey, this isn't going well for you. Don't let this continue to go poorly for you. He's bringing up a conversation that happened between you guys. It would have been in his, it's like a private conversation around 16. And it was kind of you begging him something of the same energy. And he's highlighting like, it's my turn to talk to you about this. Because I feel that you might have gone to him. Was it, okay, he's kind of highlighting, was there ever a conversation where you had to get him to recommit to being part of the family, essentially? Well, just that he's checked out, because he's almost like, you pulled me back in. You told me I had to be here. And he's like, you need to be present in like you being happy. He's referencing this conversation, and it happened. It would have happened because I almost feel like you're like whispering and you're a little bit desperate. You're a little bit like, I need you to hear me. Can I say hi? Oh, he's got rambunctious energy. He's very smart, though. He's smart without being too sensitive. He's going to do well in sports because he's going to be analytical, but like still a man's man about it. Meanwhile, I feel like you're middle. He leans almost like, I know we're over, but this is on me because I love kids. He's almost like savant-esque with some aspects of himself. Does he lean a little autistic? Like sensory stuff? Yeah, I think so. What does that mean? Yes. He's the only one of the kids I feel that leans on the spectrum. And I feel that he needs to find a good stimming technique that's private, because he's already kind of coming into the knowledge of he doesn't want somebody to know that he's having such a hard time. So we want to develop in him some private ways to get some of that out, because I feel like he doesn't stim or he doesn't do that. And so that kind of outbursts. So we'll even it out. We can develop ways to even out some of the stress for him, because you're right, it is sensory. It's also very tactile. So I feel almost like, and it's a little temperature related. I don't know what that's about, but it's almost like certain temperatures trigger him to be more, it makes it worse. So what I feel is, and he doesn't have an awareness to it. So, and I feel it has around almost like if he's a little bit too warm, everything becomes more irritating on his skin. And then out of nowhere, he's frustrated for no reason. You're like, the fuck? And it's like, well, something's on him that feels bad. He will also have a big thing around choice. So as he gets older, we want to fake and create ways for him to feel like he has choice and control. And an example of this would be like, you could be at the store and you could save a lot of time and effort by not including the kids in the decision and just get them all blue toothbrushes. But he would be the type, if you give him the chance to pick it, every time he sees the toothbrush that's purple, it reinforces this idea that he does have control in the world, because he's a little bit, this is very overwhelming. So sometimes it feels like he's not in control. So a big way to, I guess they're kind of indicating if there's an outburst, the way to reverse psychology is the next day or within the next couple of hours or whatever, really give him a lot of options of choice, because usually the outburst is a response to not feeling in control. So it's like the Band-Aid, the hot tea for that feeling will always be more choices to feel more in control. Now, who's your oldest? Yeah, she hasn't come up much in the energy quite yet. She's a little bit, she kind of keeps, she conceals. And Zeke, Yes, yeah, she's smart, and because I can tell.
She's
Governed by Mercury, man. What are you? So what's her rising? Do you know?
I have her 13 sign chart. I'm not sure her rising.
I would be very Aries. That makes. Oh, that's yours. Okay, that's a complicated thing for you too. For you to be Aries forward and fucking Piscean, Aquarian. Yeah, good luck. But that's also why you're you've maintained a sweetness, because a lot of your life should have made you not. And there is a very kind there, that's integral. Yeah, man, she's gonna be fun. You're like, I don't need more lessons. I'm in the middle of some. Can you chill? I made you.
It's like myself.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see how their relationship. I will say this. I'm just gonna say this and leave it alone. Do not be overly protective of the relationship between them and their father. Give them the present and the privilege to have their own opinion, and just let them have it. Because you know what I mean? It's like, I feel in your energy, because like there's going to be some spitfire reactions about it. And they're going to be like, fuck this guy. And you're like, no, we're adults. It just didn't work. Like, but don't give them that, especially her more than any of them. But you've got great kids. I feel he wants it too. I think everyone kind of wants it. But I think that you have a right to feel a little bit cheated out of what you were kind of promised. So we need to really honor that you sort of feel hoodwinked. And the irony is, the thing you told me about him, I thought was interesting, because you said, well, he didn't really want 3 kids. It's like, he chose to do that with you. And you're essentially giving him an out, saying, well, I hoodwinked. Like, maybe he's hoodwinked. It's like, dog, you're the one who got hoodwinked. I hate to tell you. I don't see, what I'm saying? Like, he was an adult. He made a choice. He wanted to lock you down. There was a purpose there too. Now he's overwhelmed. Now he's got all these other issues. But the reality is, kind of knew it was a bad match from the start. Unfortunate how it shook out when it did. But the reality is, you have a choice about the future that you can make, and you know that you should, and I know that you will. So it's more a timeline thing and how comfortable you feel. But I wouldn't spend too much time figuring out how to make it work, because it's just not a good way to use energy. All right. I hope this helped. Okay, good. I love it, dude. I just got to talk to her. Yes. Well, also too, dude, my rate is $100 an hour for things like this. But when it comes to things like matters of the heart, where it's like not what's my future, but if you ever just need to talk about what's actually going on, then my rate's just $50. Because to me, that's my actual, like, I want to help people, and I want to help them through this bullshit. And you can't really lie to me, because my guides don't let it happen, for the better or worse. Reach out if you need anything, because it's not 100 if we're talking matters of the heart. You see what I mean? Yeah, dude, you so have this, and just sink into a year of, I'm going to make decisions at a pace that feels good, and I'm going to enjoy the nerdy things that I've kind of been putting on the back burner anyway, because everything else has felt big. It's like, take the year to just get a breath, because you need a breather. Give yourself the relief of knowing, I know what I need to do, just don't rush me through it type vibe. And just kind of, you know exactly where you're going. You just got to figure out the how, really. And that doesn't mean go figure out how to work. That's not what it is. But I hope that helped. Okay, my dear. Yay. I'll just Venmo or Apple. Like, I have it all. Whatever works. All right. Take care.
Thanks so much, Sterling. Appreciate it.
Of course. Bye-bye.